Running Sentences presents Against an Angry Ocean. Part 5. Awash in Waves. The battle for control of the ship continues as the ship's computer continues to just do its own thing. This story was written and narrated by Michael Hunray. It is a work of fiction, so any names, characters, businesses, events, and situations within this story are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to real people, situations, characters, businesses, events, and/or fictional characters, businesses, events is purely coincidental. Copyright 2025, Michael Hunray. All rights reserved. Chris and Kaylee worked hard, twisting wrenches here and there in their efforts to get things good again. Sweat poured from them as they moved from spot to spot around the massive engines, neither of them which was operating at the moment. This one is all good, and I can't see a reason for why the axle was spinning like it was. The only answer is programming, but I don't think the computer will like that answer. Yes, I will clearly not like any such accusations against my work, Chris. How is that thing even operating batteries? Like, we don't have power. No idea, but it is still going and being unhelpful. I protest. My job is a difficult one, and I keep everything running in tip-top shape, you two. There is some doubt about that computer since you nearly destroyed the engines. I did not, Kaylee. If you continue to be mean to me, I will be forced to cut off your access to me. There will be no running the ship from this room if you do this. The intercom kicks to life with a crackle of static before Sky's voice manages to come through. How are things down there? Not good. The engines aren't cooperating. We need to be in the clear. How far until the eye of the storm, or are we clear of the storm, or what's going on up there? Can't say for sure, Chris. The controls here are reading a variety of different things. Also, Ursula is trying to deploy the sails so that we can actually get moving again. The sails? Yes, on the mast outside there are sails in case of an emergency, Kaylee. But we're still in rough weather, so that might not go well. Just so the engine room is aware, the only way to access those sails is by going outside. The captain is currently attempting to do so, the computer announced. Aren't the quarters sealed up, so getting outside is difficult, right, computer? Yes, Kaylee, you are sealed in for your safety. More like so we don't try and escape. You think they don't want us getting to safety, Chris? They don't want us losing their cargo. You are the CEO. We're to protect this boat with all we've got. That means they'll send us to the bottom, even if it means that the cargo can get where it is going. Why do you think they have computers that won't listen to us? Chris said. There is a good and all, but can you do anything about those engines, guys? No, nothing works right now. There's something clogging up the works, and until the water around us is calm, I can't tell, Sky. Alright, I got it. Is there any breaks in the storm, Sky? Not really. The closest storm appears to not be far away, but I don't know if we'll get there, or if we will last until we get there. The screen shows a lot of storms back to back in this area, though. I don't know if we will get much time for calm waters, but I'll do my best to get us there. The intercom cut off, leaving the two to their work. Ursula had a problem. Her arms grasped at the railing of the walkway, having captured that in her jump. The rest of her was dangling off as she kicked her legs, trying to get to the bottom of the walkway so she could get some balance and tip herself onto it. But her feet kept getting a hold, only to slip off as she tried to put some weight on them. The waves continually rolling the ships back and forth were also not helping matters. Come on, I can do this. One of the waves pushed the ship so hard she felt herself turning almost upside down as she held on for dear life. Having lost her grip on the railing, she tumbled about, grasping for anything as the ship righted itself. And with her luck, just barely, she fell hard onto the platform she'd been trying to get onto. Well, I guess that works and I have some luck, but how am I going to get out of here and up onto that main deck? There is a ladder once you open the bay doors, Captain. Let me guess, it's overly complicated to get to, computer? It isn't complicated, no. It drops down when the doors are opened, and you can climb on it. The only catch is that you have to switch sides that you're climbing on to get out onto the deck. With a groan, Ursula climbs towards a box at the end of this platform. It had a giant valve twist, which proclaimed open and shut. With a twist, the cargo door bays began to slowly crank open, allowing tons of rainwater to wash their way in. Thankfully, this ladder also did come down. Hendrik sneezed as he looked over the latest reports that the company Blue Block had turned over to him. There was an apparent layer of dust on these things, making it hard to concentrate. The meeting room he sat in contained his secretary, Peter from before, and a weird Weasley man named Anthony who kept looking around. Why are these files like this? Oh, we were locking them away for safekeeping. They don't need to be seen again unless there's an emergency, the Weasley man said. This much dust does not collect in a single year, Mr. Anthony. It can, though, sir. Oh, we keep lots of copies of these things. It's just one of the pre-signed versions. It's okay. Don't worry about it, Mr. Hendricks, Mr. Parker added. Hendricks held it up to show that the contract had all been signed. Or maybe they were signed. There's lots of copies about, though. We still have a problem. Yes, as my secretary points out, these are nice and all, but they do not actually tell us about the programming done on my ship. Well, that's not our problem. We could look into the paperwork, but it would take time, and it should be noted you only asked for the contracts. My issue, Mr. Parker, lie in the programming itself of my ship. I told you that before. Nothing I can do about that now, though. You'll have to wait until another day before we can get you those papers, Parker said confidently. There is no time. You either get them or you'll be served with a lawsuit. Mr. Parker and Mr. Anthony looked to one another, mildly surprised, as Hendricks' secretary slowly pulls out a long manila-looking envelope and lays it out on the table before them. We came prepared for any eventualities, gentlemen. We do not take action lightly when it comes to a lot of money. I'm sure you are the same way. Just look at all the work you've done to keep your original company secret and away from prying eyes, Hendricks said. We can get you some stuff, of course, but it will take until the afternoon, Parker offered them. And, of course, that lawsuit will need to vanish. What lawsuit? With a grin, then the envelope disappeared under the hand of Jewel back towards her little briefcase. The slick surface of the deck was not easy for Ursula to grasp, even as she got a hold of the rung that had been put on the deck, one that would help someone clamber out of the hold and onto the deck itself. With a lot of might and trying to ignore the whipping wind and rain, she pulled herself onto it. The deck was rocking back and forth, but at this moment, no waves appeared ready to crash over or to send the boat yawing onto its side. All right, I'm out here, computer. What do I have to do? She wasn't expecting a response, but would have been very nice to have at that moment. And since she didn't get one, she took a step forward, trying to find out where she was and what she was looking at. The dark, overcast skies, along with the wind and rain, made it difficult to see anywhere or anything. With a bunch of steps forward, she nearly collided with a huge metal pole that was sticking out of the deck and then realized what it was. The mast stood there and had a small box attached to it. With all her might, she would pry this open and began cranking at a crank she found inside. Round and round it went until it hit a stop with a click. There was a further whirring noise as things shuddered, and despite the difficulty in seeing anything, there was an indication that something was coming out of all of the masts. Great, job done. Now I need to get back before anything bad happens. The ship jolted for a moment, a wave pushing it hard to the side, sending her skittering towards the edge of the railings. They were solid railings on the ship, so one wouldn't directly fall off, and was stopped dead. The ship slightly righted itself, sending her tumbling back towards the other way, since she hadn't had a chance to grasp at that railing. With all of her energy, when she felt like her legs were beneath her and able to fully stand up, she did exactly what she needed to do and sprinted for the still open cargo bay doors. They were only a few short feet away, but it still felt like it would take forever to get there. The helm, which Sky had grabbed, jerked to life in his hands and pushed back against him. It felt like a new life had been breathed into the ship. Computer. I am still here, Mr. Sky. Can you give me an update on what's going on? Well, it appears, sir, that the sails have been deployed. And Ursula? I cannot report on her until she returns to the interior of the ship. Are you saying you don't have monitors over the deck of the ship? Well, I do have them, but in storms they cannot be activated and are often obscured. So this entire trip, the deck computer will only work when we are in port. The question felt stupid to ask, but it was already out there. I think you should pay more attention to where you are sailing than worrying about me, sir. And why is that, computer? There are two storms which you can steer towards, or the calmness of the eye of the storm that you're nearest. If you're not careful, you will get pulled into one, if not both, of those storms. Thanks for the help. He pushed the helm to the boat, slowly responding to his plotting and efforts to get it to move. It is, however, slow to do so, with the ship feeling like the wind was taking control instead of him. Would you like me to plot a course for you? You can't control the ship computer, so plotting a course wouldn't do much good unless you could show it to me on a heads-up display. Yes, follow this line, which is what I meant in the first place, sir. A line with occasional dot and slight course corrections appeared on the windows before Sky. He took them in, nodded, and wondered if this was going to go right or not. With a shrug to himself, he decided to follow it. The work on getting things right in the engine room was taking time. Chris felt the sweat and tiredness pour over him as he stared at the metal plugs that covered the plate, allowing him access to parts of it. The question running through his mind asked if he really needed to take another of these parts off, or if there was another way around all of this. Hey! Yeah, what is it, Kaylee? It's been awfully quiet and the ship feels like it's moving again. Yes to the first part, and I can't tell how much it's been moving with the way it's been rolling about. Should we contact the bridge and give them an update on what we've got going on? Don't have much to update them on, so we still have to figure out what caused the axle to do what it did. I still say we blame the computer for all of that. Without proof, no one is going to listen to that excuse, and I mean the higher-ups who we have to report to. They'll merely blame us and the computer will stop working with us. Chris is correct in his assessment, Kaylee. Blah, blah, blah. All you do is talk, computer, and never help us. Why would we listen to you? Because I know how to get things started again, and you wouldn't have to take apart most of the engine to do it. Chris stood up from his position so that he could see Kaylee, and she looked over to him as well from her spot near some valves that were needed to be turned. They both had raised eyebrows, and while that sounded nice from the computer, how many lies and weirdness were going on here? Chris didn't know if he could trust this computer, or if he wanted an answer to that. What can you do to make us trust you? I should be asking that question, Chris. So far you've threatened me at every turn. Why should I trust you? Because without us, you can't maintain this ship. Oh, you think so, Kaylee? We know so. You were revving the axle, spinning it until it was almost broken. Our job is to make sure that things don't get out of control here. You let it get out of control, computer. That is a lie, Chris. Then what were you doing to it? Working out a few kinks in the engine. It needed to be pushed to its limit to make sure it will survive the journey across the ocean. That testing was done before, at the docks, and probably by the engine manufacturer. A test was done, yes, Chris. It was not good enough for my standards. It doesn't matter what your standards are. You cannot conduct a test in the middle of an ocean while on a job. You are wrong about that, sir. The Navy does it, and we should all follow what the Navy does. That doesn't make any sense, computer. I mean, it makes some sense since they're the Navy and generally they know what they're doing, but there are many times in history that have proven that they don't know what they're doing. Stress tests will continue when you restart the engines. This is a fact, since I can take them over at any time. Please take that into consideration before you act any further. Are you blackmailing us? There was a silence that followed from the computer. Firmly back inside the ship and now standing on the walkway, Ursula breathed a heavy sigh of relief. Her legs felt like they wanted to go out from under her, and all she could do was hold on to the railing and look down at the cargo below. Congratulations on making it back in one piece. Thanks. Is there a way off this walkway and into the ship, or do I have to actually climb down it? Oh, there's a doorway to your left. What? Yes, right over there, if you take a look. She turns to her left, shoulders sinking upon seeing the sight of a hatchway, neatly tucked away, but there. Why wasn't I told about this before? Oh, that is simple, Captain. The door only operates one way when someone needs to get out. Otherwise, it is neatly kept sealed so that the cargo won't be harmed by crew members. Why would the cargo be harmed? What's in the cargo that's going to cause problems? I was not given that information, so I cannot tell you that. I will say that my programming was told that this was important cargo and that I should watch out for it. But me climbing over all of them was fine, though. You only touched the containers, which is not actually the cargo, Ursula, and since my computer didn't say that was a bad thing, it was A-OK. That does not fill me with confidence. That is not my problem, Captain. Are you headed out or no? There is nothing else for me here, so yes, I'm leaving. She stormed her way over to the hatchway, pushing on the handle hard. This was mostly from the fear that it wouldn't actually open, and she'd wind up looking ridiculous as a result. With a mighty clank, the handle went down, and the door popped open, causing her to breathe another huge, massive sigh of relief. Goodbye for now. I'm sure we will meet again. I certainly hope not, cargo computer. And can you close the cargo bay doors? I began that process before you were even back inside the ship. A few last files stood before Hendrik as his phone rang for the 10th time in the last hour or so. He'd been trying to ignore it so he could finish reading these last reports and the programming for the ship. None of them had given him what he had wanted to know, so he angrily grabbed at his phone. What and who is this? My name is David Duntop and I work for some people interested in your work, Mr. Hendrik. What? Why? What do you want? Information which I will get one way or another. Best to just come out and tell me about your ship. Are you intending to buy my company out? Is that your grand plan, Mr. Duntop? It won't work. The government won't allow it. Hendrik found himself relaxing, sitting back in his chair, feeling like this was now going his way, despite the fact that he was sputtering in frustration of everything going on. It is funny that you think me so simple. No, I have ways of getting what I want from aboard your ship. That is, if you don't do a good job protecting your crew, sir. Those people? Good luck with that. I made sure they knew little, and all they really can do is operate that boat. It is the type of ship that has been around for a while as well, so there's nothing special about it. Well, if you insist everything is okay, Mr. Hendrick. But you don't really know that, do you? I know what I can and what I cannot. You are reaching for something out there that you won't like when you find it. None of what is before me and what I'm dealing with is easy. I am keeping this boat running and operating. You are just... Who are you and what are you trying at? I work for the government, sir. The cargo is easy enough to figure out. People will talk once they figure out that they're dead in the water. Your crew will turn against you. You mean my crew will talk? No, they won't. They can't get into the cargo to find out anything. I see you're unwilling to talk to me then, and we will have to see how things play out. Well, it took you a while to finally get the message, but you got there. Congratulations. Now fuck off. Don't think you can get to my crew and my cargo any time soon. Oh, sir, I've already gotten to them. Best of luck keeping your secret. Oh, and the cargo, the illegal plants, animals, and other items. Oh, whatever it is, yes, they will soon be found out. Nothing is illegal if the government approves of it, Mr. Doontop. But does the country getting this cargo know what's going on in there? Hendrik let that go, knowing full well that this man, this Mr. Doontop, seemed to already have the answer, and he was just poking at things right now. A knock on the door surprised Kaylee. She had exhausted herself working on the engines, and since there was nothing to do at the moment, her and Chris had decided to retire until the evening to their rooms. It was the late afternoon already, though, so maybe this was him calling to bring her back to work? Yes, who is it? It's the captain. Oh, come in. The door opened quickly, letting in a wet and tired-looking Ursula into the room. She was quick to shut the door. Apologies for my appearance. You look like you've gone through a storm. That I have, but there's more important factors to talk about. Okay, why me and what's going on? I think there's something in the cargo that we're carrying. Now even more confused, Kaylee sat up on her bed, which she'd been reclining and looking at her phone to play some games on. The reception was non-existent, even with the satellite line they had, so games were all she really had. Okay, what's up with it then, Captain? I'm not entirely sure on that part, but when I had to crawl over them to get up to the main deck, they had funny words written on the container. Like what? And why do you think I would know them? You're from the middle of the country, Kaylee, one steeping in rich heritage of taking names from other places because they once had a connection to them. Yes, I am from the middle of the country, but I don't know about the rest of that. It wasn't my nature to pry about those sorts of naming conventions or things like that. But you have heard of Blue Block, right? I know there's a conglomerate of some sort, but what does that have to do with taking names from other places? Well, I've heard that they did something like that back in the day to appear more from home, Kaylee. The thing that I know about them is they transport lots of arms and other goods. Weapons, Captain? I don't think there is anything wrong with that, but I also heard rumors about that company. They're into all sorts of different things. And that's what I'm worried about. There are a load of bad things that can be loaded into a cargo bay, and we would never know about it, would we, Kaylee? Well, have you told anyone else? Not yet. I wanted to see what you knew about them. Oh, well, rumors mostly, Captain. Nothing that would do us any good. Do you think maybe Sky or Chris would know something about them? Would you trust them with that sort of thing, though, Captain? Not completely, no, but we need all the answers we can get, Kaylee, so we can decide on what to do when we get the engines back and running. If we can get control of the computer in the first place, Captain. This, Ursula frowned. This was not a response she liked to hear. Yes, that is something to be considered and dealt with. Is there something wrong with the computer now? It seems to want to take over, but I think we already all knew that. So do you want us to all go to examine that cargo? The captain paused for a moment while she thought and tapped her foot on the ground. We should go do that. I managed to leave the door open to the cargo bay, otherwise it would have been a long, arduous trip to get there. Hopefully the computer won't have done anything to it. Kaylee slowly rose from her bed, unsure of what else to do. The captain's orders were the captain's orders, but she's not exactly giving an order here. Ursula was already opening the door and heading out of her room. The crew had gathered around the slightly open hatchway, with each of them looking to one another. Ursula stood in front of the group, holding her hands out to quiet the murmurs that were going between Chris, Sky, and Kaylee. She didn't feel the least bit confident, but there wasn't much to do right now but to put on a strong face. You all know why you're here. The cargo's got something strange inside and you want us to poke at it, Captain. Not poke it, but I would prefer to see what's inside it. Chris. Can I ask why? It doesn't feel like we need to know this, as long as we can get the ship where it needs to go. Is this important that we have to do it? Yes, Sky, we need to be in control of what's going on aboard this ship. We don't do that or fail to know what the dangers are that are aboard, we risk our lives. How many horror movies are out there that have similar premises? But they're movies. The second-in-command let his words die away when she gave him a stern look to not question this any more. Movies, after all, were movies, and they were created to be slightly ridiculous. But that didn't mean they weren't somewhat based in reality. Any other question? Do you really need all of us here for this? I have a feeling you wouldn't believe me if I simply told you what was in there, Chris. You all have to see it with your own eyes. I guess that's fair. Captain, I remember a bit more about Blue Block, the work they do. It has lots to do with computerization and taking over things. So there's going to be computer parts in there? That's the big worry? They all shot a look at Sky, saying his comments weren't appreciated. What? Why shouldn't we question this? Because we have important worries and ones that cannot simply be ignored. You do understand that, right? I get you're unhappy with things, Captain, but I don't understand how, with no evidence, we're going along with all of this. What I saw in the cargo bay while climbing on the containers to get out of the ship was that there's enough evidence that there's something weird here and wrong, and even the computer said it was weird. And, as Blue Block Corp runs a lot of cargo, and to be the first to ship across the ocean again with their technology, that seems convenient to me. Kaylee raised her point, but Sky was shaking his head. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we know what we're doing and what is going on, Sky told them. There is a problem, as I don't think there's a ladder down to the bottom of the cargo space. All we have is the walkway to the cargo containers. Can we reach the cargo containers from the walkway? It's a bit of a jump over, Chris, and not an easy one at that. We're better off if only one of us tries. There is no way that the computer will offer to help us? I doubt it, Kaylee. With some grumbling, the group moves into the cargo area. They walked in, their steps clattering on the metal walkway, which echoes about the quiet cargo space. Without the sounds of the engine, the entire ship had fallen into this quiet sort of weirdness that none of them were used to. This is weird. What about it is weird, Chris? Kaylee asked. Feels like there should be noise in here. A soft, buzzing noise then filled the air for a moment, making all of them stop to look where it might be coming from. Computer, is that you? Hello again, Captain. No. Do you know what is causing that noise? The cargo, I assume, since it is the only thing here. You're unsure of what is going on, computer? Yes, Mr. Sky, there is no good answer for it. Don't bother asking what's in the cargo either. Sky doesn't know, or claims not to know. The group of them inched their way towards the railing to look down and across at the containers. 4 unhappy faces then turned to look to one another to see what they wanted to do. Great, so who's going over to the other side? And I don't think it should be one of the engineers, just pointing that out. Which would leave either the captain or myself, Kaylee, and I somehow doubt that you want to risk it, Captain. You are the most expendable member of the team, Sky, and I say that with all the most respect. Yeah, thanks, Chris. Anyone want to veto that idea aside from me? This was met with silence, and his shoulders slumped a little bit. Course not. You don't have to risk anything if it is me, the one going into danger. He backs up as far as he could go, then charged over, jumping his way over the railing for the nearby container. Barely clearing it, and he made the distance, but grabbing a hold of the metal bars that were attached to these boxes, holding the cargo was just not easy. His hands snatched at them and then sliding him down a few feet until he was almost at the second container. You all right? No, that hurt, Captain. Well, you're gonna go all the way down though, right? Chris asked. Yes, opening the container in the middle of the air now sounds like a terrible idea. We should have all gone the other way around. I thought of it, but I didn't think it would. I was told none of us would all, that I was the only one who would fit through such spaces, so this is our only way. Ursula protested. We have plenty of time, and now your whole goal of seeing what's in these is now ruined. Yes, I suppose we'll all now have to jump across once you've made it safely to the bottom so that we can all really see what's going on. Do we have to, Captain? Yes, you first, Kaylee. One by one they jumped and then dropped down. A few moments passed as they collected themselves on the cargo bay floor. Kaylee was shaking out her wrist, while Chris rode down his legs. Both seemed to have caught stingers on their journey down to the ground, which Sky had as well, but by the time they'd gotten down there, his problems were mostly gone. Now it was up to them to approach one of these locked containers to see what was held inside. There was also a thing with noise which had vanished during their descent. So, how do we get these things open? Sky asked. Twist a handle and it should come right open. No fancy locking mechanism or chains that will block the way, Captain? I don't know, Sky. Chris, Kaylee, do you know? Well, I've worked in shops that bring in trucks with these in the back. They're usually opened by somebody else. I've never dealt with them, sorry, Kaylee added. Right, well, Chris, help Sky open one of these up then. Sure, Captain. Don't know I'll be of much help, though, Chris said. The two guys slowly approached the nearest box that stood 8 feet tall. The doors to it sat before them as they looked to one another. You really don't know anything about them? Chris points towards the bottom of the container. I think the locks are down there. Okay, you take one side, I'll take the other and see what happens. Yeah, I guess, sir. They move over and kneel down, grabbing at the handles at the bottom. With a heavy pull upward, Chris gets his to click and release, and with that out of the way, they pull back to reveal what is inside. What are we looking at or for, Ursula? Bad stuff, second in command. Do a lot of boxes that have no labels count as bad stuff? Depends on what's in them. You should get one out and open up to see what we have. I'm getting a weird feeling about this, Captain. It doesn't feel right anymore. Chris said this, but was ignored as the neatly packed boxes that were placed in such a way, should someone pull out a box, the rest of them would not come tumbling down on them. A pattern of supported boxes so that they weren't lined up on top of one another, which was nice. This whole chirp isn't right, and we're the victims of it, Chris. At least we should know what's in these things. Captain's orders. Out of frustration, Sky had already moved over and grabbed one of them and began pulling. It was barely moving, and he was joined by Chris, which still had little effect. Soon they were joined by the two ladies, and with all their efforts, they finally managed to pull out a really, really long box, but not fully so. Part of the top popped open once they'd stopped trying to pull it any further, as they were running out of room. What is that? Looks humanoid, Kaylee. That doesn't explain what it is, Sky. Maybe it's some sort of war machine, a robot, something of that sort, since that's what Blue Block are known for, right? Kaylee, what were you saying about that? Chris interrupted. They do a lot of weird things there, or futuristic, and simple people aren't supposed to know about or get to. Having looked on the records on my database, I can offer you a hint as to what it is. They all looked up, since the computer, the cargo computer, had spoken up. Not having anywhere to really concentrate, the group was just swiveling their heads about. How would you even know? You claim not to know. Didn't you know, Captain? I was built by the same company. End of Part 5 of Against an Angry Ocean. Thank you for listening.